Hey, everybody, welcome to Grilling at the Green here in Portland and Seattle and across the country on a handful of stations and also Golf Newsnet on iHeart. That's a 24/7 signal. If you don't know that, it's all about golf. Today, we've got a very special guest, Michael Arkush. He's got a new book. Michael's written a ton of books, and we'll talk about some of those a little later in the show. The new one is called The Golf 100, a spirited ranking of golf's greatest players of all time. And so, according to Jim Dobson, I should give you a hard time on this because I talked to
Oh
him
no.
yesterday. Okay. But
Okay.
anyway, welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you. I can't wait to hear what Jim had to say.
Well, he and I had a spirited discussion yesterday about some of the rankings. So,
Okay.
but I caught him at cocktail hour, so
Uh-oh.
I can't hold that against him. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, what prompted you to write this book, first of
Gosh,
all?
so many things. The prime focus was I kept reading these obituaries online about players who I followed as a kid, and they were on the crawl on ESPN or somewhere else for maybe a day or two, and then they disappeared. And I always felt like I lost something. Like I wanted to learn more. I wanted to know more. And it just occurred to me how fleeting all of life is really, and how we recognize people of the past, but we move on. We're always so focused on the here and now. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that in a sense, yet I still feel the past has to be more recognized and more respected. So I wanted to bring these players back to life.
Don't you think that just golf in itself, just use that as one term, not try to put any definitions on it, but golf is respectful. It's one of the few sports that is respectful of its history.
To some degree, yes, but not as much as I think it should be.
Okay.
You'd be amazed at how many players I've spoken to who know so little about the heritage and richness of the game. It's staggering at times. Fans as well. They think that some think Tiger invented the sport. Others think Arnold invented the sport. Well, no. I mean, it goes back a lot longer than that. And even though golf does have a good amount of, probably better than a lot of other sports, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think the only one that maybe perhaps does it better or at least some reverence to it is maybe baseball in a way
Yes. Yes.
because they have the Hall of Fame, they have all this, and a lot of people, you can compare stats all the time, which is what you did in this book, but you can compare stats in baseball. You don't hear that so much in football or lacrosse or water polo or anything.
Well, you know what? I don't know how many receiving yards Jerry Rice. I don't know how many receptions Jerry Rice has. I know about Babe's 714 home runs. I know about Cy. I mean, the stats in baseball, you grow up as a kid. You don't grow up with basketball or football stats.
No, 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 no. Everybody, even when you're little, you can understand when you're watching a game and somebody says, well, he's a Cy Young Award winner. Well, you may not know what that is when you're really little, but as you progress through life, you learn, or your dad tells you or what have you. But that's why one of the reasons I like golf is because I love to play it, but I also love the reverence that we pay to the historical values of the sport. So, how
Yeah,
did
and,
you?
and I think go ahead.
No, I finish your thought there, please.
No, I mean the reference is exactly right, and because we can look back at there. Plus, it's an individual sport, which makes it even more resonates even more that we can compare players of now to before and have that kind of respect.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And if you talk to somebody like Jim, he's written so much over the years historically and this and that, and he always is throwing a fun fact at me. He thinks they're a fun fact anyway, about somebody did this in 1923, and when the first tournament at Pinehurst or whatever. I've made that up, but you see the analogy there.
Yes.
And I think though that, like Jim said, he's in his 70s now. He goes, what's going to happen 10 years from now when I'm no longer writing and out the door, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, he's amazing. You wonder, you worry about people being able to chronicle the game. I'm not sure that the current generation is as well prepared to do that as we are or have been.
Yes.
to be able to look at it all in a perspective and instead of just the here and now, which is so important.
Yeah. And well, the age we live in, as people say, instant gratification. Just like you and I right now doing this show, technology is a fascinating and great thing, but I think it's also warped our sense of perspective, not just in sports, but in life. Sometimes I think we right there it gets people fired up. Anyway, how
Yes.
did you come up with your, lack of a better term, your scoring system or your rating system?
Well, I knew all along that I had to come up with some kind of formula, but if I just threw it out without numbers at all, that people would just totally go after it and justifiably. So I had to do that. I also believed that major championships are the key barometer of this sport. They really tell us who's been great and who hasn't, who's come up short when the stakes were at the highest. So I gave 2,000 points to every major win. 500 for second. Now, I know that's a large gap, but I do believe the difference between first and second is so huge that it warranted that. 250 for third, 100 for fourth, and 50 for fifth. Anything worse than that, no points. I gave
Okay.
300 points for regular tour events because they have value, but not for somebody who shoots a 66 on Sunday when they're nine back to wind up in a tie for third when there's really no pressure on. They're pretty much off TV already when you show up when you start watching.
Right.
So majors, majors, majors. That's the point.
Are they all equal though, the majors? That's one of the things that struck me because is a
Yeah.
major equal, was one of Ben Hogan's majors equal to one of Tiger's majors? I'll
Yeah, yeah,
put
yeah.
it in
Well,
perspective
yeah.
there.
I mean, you have to go back into what is considered a major in its time. Okay, so yeah, all the majors are equal. Some people will say, well, shouldn't the Open or the Masters be at a higher level than the PGA? No, I didn't make that distinction. Every major is important. The one thing I did make very important, though, as well, was the role of the U.S. and British amateur, which were majors for the longest time.
Right.
They have been forgotten. I bet you could not name the last five U.S. amateur winners. I don't know anybody who could really. Maybe somebody in amateur golf, but we've lost something because of that, and I wanted to do my part to try to restore that.
Well, actually, when you think about it, you go back, let's go back 100 years, if it were, to the Bobby Jones era. Those amateurs championships were huge.
Yeah.
That's what made the papers, as they would say.
Yeah, absolutely. You go back, I've gone through a lot of papers and seen how big they were. I can even remember as a kid, even the amateurs in the 60s and 70s being a bigger deal. Not quite as big, I know, as before, but there's such a beauty and to amateur golf to playing for the pursuit of the title as opposed to the paycheck. And that sadly is gone right now.
Do you think the money has gotten well out of the realm of reality? When a guy can go out and shoot well, and it's a tough deal. Anybody who plays knows it's tough, and if you want to be good at that level, you have to be really good. I get that, but also, is that worth a $3 million check on Sunday?
Well, the money being a part of the whole equation is too often discussed. The moment a tour player wins on Sunday, you see the FedEx Cup standings on the TV. I don't care about the FedEx Cup standings, and I hate the expression when a guy misses a 4-footer who's tied for third or fourth, and somebody says that's going to cost him a lot of money. Do they say that about Aaron Judge when he drops a fly ball, or
Yeah.
or or LeBron when he misses a jumper? No, we should not have money be something we discuss as often as we do, period.
Yeah, I what was it, Ob Keeler, that said money will ruin the game,
Yeah.
almost 100 years ago, give or take. And I'm not going to say it's going to ruin it, but I think it's well out of the reach of the normal mind. Put it that way. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with Michael Arkush and his 100 top 100, the spirited ranking of golf's greatest, right after this. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. We'd like to thank the folks at Birdie Ball. If you need a golf practice mat, check out birdieball.com. They got lots of choices, and be sure to get a dozen birdie balls to help with your practice round. I actually have that set up in my backyard, and it helps. Not everything is going to help my golf game. I know that. But that those will help, and also Painted Hills Natural Beef, beef the way nature intended. So, Michael, before we get back to your book, this is the part of the show that I always ask my guest for a travel tip of all things. Now, as a writer and you're going around to tournaments, like you said, you were talking to Jim Furyk, excuse me. You said that right at the on the forward of the book about he kind of thought you were crazy a little bit to take on this assignment, but you have to travel around, especially if you're a sports writer. So
Hmm.
you must have a travel tip, whether it's with golf clubs or not. What,
Yeah, I do. I think the most important thing is to study the history of where you're going as much as you can. Don't just there are distinctions in places, and each place, like each individual, has his or own history. And I think you need to just do your homework and not just show up somewhere. Oh God, not every place is the same. I think we start to get into that habit. Just try to learn so that when you get there, go, oh wow, I read about this a week ago. And that's just for you when you're any kind of trip, really.
right. As I said at the top, we're talking with Michael Arkush, whose new book really kind of caught me off guard in some things because you don't just do the numbers. You've got stories mixed in there about things that happened in life to people, and as we were talking about the top of the show, people get forgotten. Major winners and people that really had a big influence on the game, and their presence, their history just kind of vanishes away at times. Um, how long did it take you to write this?
The whole process took me almost 3 years.
Wow.
The writing part maybe around two, a little more than two. But the funny thing is, I wrote so many sections early on that I was looking back at it a year and a half later, which I never really had done. And then you're who you are a year and a half later is so different. And then you have to integrate all the other material you've had. So it was a lot of rewriting.
Did you when you've let's talk about like the you Bernard Longer there, and you said something that I didn't know as far as he got hurt when he was in the service. I
Yeah.
don't know if that information has always been readily available, but I evidently never caught it. But he hurt his back and he did all that, and then when he was a kid, tried to tell the people in Germany has a different educational system than we have here, and he wanted to be a pro golfer, and the bureaucrat came back and said we don't have that, basically. But how long did it take you to kind of filter out those types of stories and the background stuff?
Well, quite a while. I mean, a number of the players, I interviewed about 30 of the 40 some odd players who are still alive or in the book. And I
Yeah,
probably, in those 30 players, I probably interviewed each of them an average of 4 to 8, 5 or 6 times, something like that.
yeah.
So I kept coming back at them because, they'd say something and I'd take my notes and transcribe it and write, go, wait a minute, there's some holes here. And I was really fortunate because there were two people I talked to fairly early in the process who both wound up passing while I was working on this book, and that greatly affected me. I'm talking about Tom Weiskopf and Kathy Whitworth, and I found myself so blessed that I was able to talk to them and get incredible insight. They were both so kind, and again, it's weird. I mean, I didn't know them that well, and yes, yet it felt so. It was really hard on me when they passed.
Yeah. Well, when you make those connections with people, even we do it here on this show, it's you kind of, like I said, you connect, you feel like you know them. Um, and then when they're gone, it's like, man, I wish I could have talked to them for another hour just to,
Well, I actually had jotted down some questions I was going to come back to Kathy with. Tom was suffering from cancer. It wasn't that unexpected,
right.
but I really planned to come back to Kathy about a month or so after she wound up passing, and it was just, it was just horrible.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunately none of us are going to get out of that deal, Michael. That's at the bottom of the page, I think, for all of us. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
What was the thing in a particular interview or person that you interviewed that you felt like one, you really learned something, and two was like your most pleasurable to find that information?
Oh boy, so many people. I would say Weiskopf going back to him was one of the most enjoyable interviews because he had the reputation of being a tough guy, terrible Tom, towering inferno, short temper, all that stuff. And I was a little bit uneasy about what the interview would be like, and he could not have been kinder and more gracious and open. So that was a bit of a surprise, a welcome surprise for me. The real joy in many ways was catching up with the players I covered in the 90s, like
Yeah.
Hale Irwin, people I knew a little bit, like Tom Kite, just guys like that, Lanny Watkins, that I was able to kind of catch up. Lanny, I didn't really know that well, and Tom, I didn't know well that, but Hale, I covered all the time to just check in with him. And it was great. He's in his late 70s, and he was the same sort of competitive, tough guy that he was when I covered him. It was a blast to catch up again.
Oh, cool, cool. Was there one that was maybe not so open to you?
I wouldn't say not so. Athletes, professional athletes, a lot of them put up a wall, and even golfers. And sometimes it's really hard. You think you're a really skilled interviewer, it's hard to penetrate that wall. And in some cases, I don't feel like I penetrated as much as I created maybe little cracks and stuff came out. So I'm not going to name who they are, but some were
Sure.
tougher than others. But by and large, most of the people I talked to were so open. And part of it, I also wanted to find out how they felt now about their lives, as so much time has gone by. How do they look back on their careers and off the course? And they were fabulous.
Well, that's you consider yourself very lucky to be able to speak to some of those folks.
Yes, I
Uh,
do. I do.
yeah, it's really cool. We're talking with Michael Arkush here. His new book. I want to get the title right here. Where did I put it? The Golf 100, a spirited ranking of golf's greatest players of all time, and it's available now out there. I think it's on Amazon and different bookstores and stuff. Michael and I will be back in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. Hey, we want to thank the folks over at Weston Kia in Portland for that last segment. We always appreciate that. And Jay and Jan Weston, they're big supporters of all my golf endeavors with the tournaments I help. So we want to thank them a lot. We're talking with Michael Arkush today. The the Golf 100, a spirited ranking of golf's greatest players of all time. I'm doing that because I got so many papers on my desk here today, Michael. So forgive me for that. Um, okay, so given everything is a level playing field, we'll get to Tiger and Jack a little bit later because you can't get out of this interview without talking about Tiger and Jack,
Of
who one
course.
and two,
Yeah.
one and two like that. But when you think about like let's talk about Mickey Wright and Annika, and
Mm-hmm.
you measured that on majors and all
Mm-hmm.
that, but
Mm-hmm.
some people would be staunchly saying Mickey Wright was great, but Annika was better. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how do you answer those people when they?
Yeah. Well, you mean Annika, let's put it this way. Annika, I'm not saying that players who wound up higher on the list would necessarily beat those lower on the list in a head-to-head match.
Right,
I'm just going by what they achieved in their time against their level of their competition. And Mickey Wright, by the way, had a 4-year run in the early 60s, about 44 wins, I believe. Tom Watson called it the greatest run any player, male or female, has ever had. Ben Hogan said she had the greatest swing he had ever seen. She basically scaled back from the game at the age of 34 and still won 82 times. Would have won 90, maybe close to 100. Annika, I have all the respect in the world for Annika,
sure.
but Mickey Wright to me is the greatest woman golfer of all time, no question.
Who was the most flamboyant women's golfer?
Oh,
Was it Babe?
yeah. Yeah. It's so funny, Jeff. I mean, there's certain people. I mean, there are so many players in here I wish I'd gotten to know. I wish I'd seen play. Babe would be in very, if not at the top of the list, very close. If you said to me, which other players would you like to be part of your foursome? No question, Babe would be in there. What a character, what charisma, and how about winning the U.S. Women's Open after cancer surgery, which is to me one of the most remarkable stories in golf and all of sports.
There's a story, and I don't know if it's true about her, but that she was playing, maybe it was an exhibition or something, Michael, and she took off her girdle because she didn't want to wear her girdle that
Yeah,
day. Now, most
yeah,
people don't, 25 and under, don't even know what a girdle is anymore.
right. I
I
know.
do because my mother wore one, and it it looked like torture to me. But I always thought that that was uh, a fascinating story, with exposing her character there, not exposing anything else, just her character, because she lived life to the fullest.
Absolutely. So competitive. I mean, she didn't want to even lose in silver screen. I mean, there was a movie that Katharine Hepburn was in, a golf movie that,
Yeah,
yeah, Bay played was the real, her real character, and the script had her losing, and she made them change the script. I mean, so she wasn't, and there's a lot of stories about some people thought she was too competitive. Some people thought that she did some things that were not kosher, let's say.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've read those stories, but if I could go back and visit with a player, she would definitely be in my top five
Yeah.
because I just love people that are just full of life,
Yes.
and
Who
that
else
was
would be in your top five?
Walter Hagen.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that. I agree with you. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Well, Walter Hagen. It would be great to see Bobby Jones and all that historically, but I think Hagen. I think maybe Tony Lima because he died
Yeah.
when we were very
Yeah.
young, like that.
Yeah.
I did see Ben Hogan one time eating lunch down in Texas. You didn't go over and say hello to him. He was
Oh,
just sitting there like that.
right.
But I think, oh, who else? The name's evading me. He was a real character. He was from Texas. He always dressed flamboyantly.
Oh, Jimmy
Uh,
Demerit.
Jimmy Demerit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think those guys were a lot of fun
Oh
too.
yeah, I think overall all the players were more fun than they are tonight. Today they were real characters. They weren't they didn't have all the sponsors clothing on names on their clothing. They were individuals.
Yeah,
I miss that.
yeah. I think that was, and they didn't have an entourage.
No. No.
They maybe had a caddy, but other than that, they didn't.
They didn't have a quote team, my
Right?
team.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of them, and when the tours ended for the year, they went back to a club pro
That's
job,
right.
that type of thing. So it wasn't quite as lucrative as it is today. You know,
Corporate.
now
Yep.
they go get on their jet and they
Yep.
they fly home or they go to the Bahamas for 3 days or whatever to hang out. But anyway,
Right.
yeah, I think those would be some fun people to do. All right. Um, who's else? Okay, so you got as we just mentioned, Bobby Jones versus Ben Hogan. Okay.
Yeah.
And we all
Yeah.
know the Hogan story. He got hurt terribly and came back and
Yeah.
all that. And, Jones quit at an early age and retired. But if you were a betting man and you put them all things given equal and they could be on a course, any course, and play against each other, who would you think might have an edge?
Are you talking about the equipment? So let's say we put them. Bobby Jones stopped playing basically in 1930.
Right.
Hogan came about half decade later. You go 1935. They're both or 19. They're both about 30 years old. Let's say. Let's make them about 30 at the peak.
Yeah.
It's a great question. Very close. Um, I think that you have to also factor in that Jones didn't put the clubs away for months at a time because he
Right.
had a day job. So if Bobby Jones is playing regularly and Ben Hogan's playing regularly, it would have been one heck of a match. I just think, Jeff, that Bobby Jones had more of a profound impact on this game than Ben Hogan, and perhaps more than anyone, with the exception of Arnold and Tiger, probably.
I think you're right, Michael, because I think Bobby Jones made it so that it was fun and interesting and enticing for the Michaels and the Jeffs of the world. And I think Hogan was the really the start of the intense
Yes.
competition, mental stuff, because
Yes.
how much he practiced and how serious he was. I mean, he liked to have a good time, it seems like, when he was away from the course with his family and what friends he had. But out there on the course, and I've watched films of him. I'm too, he was too far along when we were kids to actually watch him play seriously like that.
Yeah.
But he looked like, Darth Vader out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of greatness, and there are a lot of elements to it, is how do you connect to other people? How much of yourself do you expose, reveal to others? And Bobby Jones was there. I mean, I don't know, I was around, but people connected with him, and Hogan maintained his distance.
Yeah.
And I think closeness is an important part of it.
Yeah. Well, Bobby Jones was kind of the people's guy, which Arnold picked up
Yep.
50 years later type thing.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, who's my other one here that I had? I had a couple comparisons for you like that. How about we'll go back up the list a little ways, but how about Bernard Longer and I'm having a tough time today remembering Michael and like Demerit, one of those guys, or Hagen.
Well, I mean, Langer, the great story about him is that he was, you referred to it earlier, great resilience. I mean, coming from a country which basically didn't really have golf,
Right.
to succeed at that level. Also, he was victimized by the yips. Terrible case of the yips. Some examples of him four putting, five putting, how he was able to overcome all that to become a two-time major champion and a 47-time winner on the Champions Tour. He's still out there. He's turning 67. Am I wait, I'm wrong. I think he's turning 68, right? He's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Oh, no doubt about that. So, we've got all this, and of course, people are not going to be happy. But when we come back from a break, which we're 20 seconds away from a break here, but when we do that, guess who we're going to talk about? Tiger and Jack. You'd never guess that, would you, Michael?
Who are they? I'm sorry. Tell me
Ah,
again.
who are they? Yeah, one and two at the top of your list. I love that. I love that because I think that's actually going to be an argument or a discussion amongst people, if you want that, civilized people, that will go on forever.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
just my take. Two
Yeah.
different things. Anyway, Michael and I are going to talk about Tiger and Jack when we come back. As I said, we're talking with Michael Arkush, whose new book, The Golf 100, a spirited ranking of golf's greatest players of all time. This is one hell of an endeavor, people. I can tell you that. Just the research that had to go into it, but I do like his point system. Anyway, Michael and I will be back in just a minute. Don't go away. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. Real quick here, we want to thank the folks up at Birdie Wrap. If you've never had Birdie Wrap, I get little sores on my knuckles and stuff of my offhand, my non-glove hand. Uh, guess it's from working outside a lot in my younger world. That Birdie Wrap stuff is really good. It's kind of like K-tape, but it's stretchier and softer, and it works better with if you got moisture, which we have here in the Northwest. So go to birdiewrap.com. And also, my radio wife on my other show, um, her family has a product called pig powder. Been rated the best barbecue rub on the planet. So go to pigpowder.com and tell Leanne I told her to send you an autographed picture, by the way, if she does that. Anyway, we're talking with Michael Arkush today with his new book. Um, okay, Tiger, Jack. I'm a I'm a unashamed, un um, make no excuses Tiger fan. Even though I'm 15 years older than he is, I'm a Tiger fan, right? Just because I like the way he played the game. When I was growing up, and uh, that's all you saw on TV was Jack or Jack and Arnie, that type of thing. Um, was that tough? I mean, you did it on a point basis, and you explained that at the top of the show. But perspective wise, uh, was it only a point basis for you?
Well, let me put it this way. I mean, I'm not arguing that Tiger wasn't better at his peak. I'm not arguing that Tiger didn't have more dominance. I think you can make that case very strongly. But when you look at the length and body of Jack's work, not just and I'm giving him 20 majors, remember, not
Sure.
18, 19 seconds, all the thirds. When you look at that versus how many times Tiger was in the mix at majors, again, the barometer of this game, in my opinion,
Yeah.
Jack, the numbers just favor Jack. I gave Tiger bonus points for his impact on the game because he impacted the sport tremendously, but the numbers favor Jack. And no, there's a greatness to Jack. And I also wrote in the chapter about Tiger how you cannot escape the issues the situation, the controversy, what he went
Sure.
through. That is also an element of greatness that I think that has to be factored, or lack of greatness that has to be factored in. Jack w was amazing and what did Chi say? He was a legend in his spare time. Um, there were a lot of time he didn't play that many tournaments. If Jack had prioritized golf even after 40, after winning the Open in 1980 and the PGA, I think there's a good chance he would have wound up with more, not just the 86 Masters, at least a couple more.
So, do you think, Michael, that talking about Tiger for a second here, because supposedly he's tied with Sam Snead in the
Right,
amount of tournaments won. If
right.
you go back and look at Snead's records, some of those were almost like exhibitions that they awarded a victory to him. I think if you kind of filtered out a half a dozen or so of those questionable tournaments, guy was a great golfer. I'm not saying he wasn't. I think Tiger would hold the record for the most tournaments. That's my thought.
Yeah, I mean, look at I covered a bunch of Tigers tournaments. I saw him up close. I saw how unbelievable he was. I was at Torrey Pines in 2008 when he wins major number 14 in the playoff over Morocco. 32 years old. Everybody assumed he was going to break Jack's record. It wasn't a question of if, it was when, maybe
Right.
3, 4, 5 years down the road. He should be the greatest player of all time, but he's not.
Yeah. No, I can accept that. I can accept that. I just think also the PGA has a funny way sometimes of qual you know qualifying and quantifying tournaments. Like I was just talking about Snead. If you're going to go back and make a level playing field, then it has to be level for everybody. That's my thought. But
No, I understand. I respect that opinion.
yeah,
Absolutely. But Snead, what a character. You talk about somebody you'd want to be in your foursome. He'd be right up there as well. I interviewed him a couple of times, near the end of his life. He was a joy it was a joy to talk to. I can tell you that.
a very athletic guy. I mean,
Oh,
I've
incredible.
seen the pictures of him, standing still and then kicking the door jam and stuff like that. It's just like, how do you, the guy was like 79 years old when he did that. I
Yeah.
mean,
But you know what?
yeah,
You know what takes something away from his greatness that he never won the US Open. Same thing
yes,
with Phil, Nancy Lopez. You don't win your nation's national championship. That's a strike against you.
that is true. Um, Michael and I are going to pick this up in after hours, but we're running out of time for the regular show. So, uh, where all can they find the Golf 100?
Well, it's available. It's actually the publication date, the release date is Tuesday, April 1st, but it's available on Amazon. You can also go to the Penguin Random website as well. But very easy to find. And I hope people read it, and I hope they enjoy it. And I welcome any questions or any challenges. Bring it on. That's all I can say.
Okay, we can do that. Um, I can tell you, it's a very enjoyable read. And if you're kind of into golf like I am, you'll want to read it. And then I read a couple of the chapters twice just because I wanted to make sure that I was getting it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Michael Arkush, the Golf 100, a spirited ranking of golf's greatest players of all time. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week with another edition. Until then, Michael and I are going to jump over into after hours, and I hope you go out, play some golf, have some fun, but most of all, be kind. Take care, everybody. Hey everybody, welcome to After Hours here on Grilling at the Green. I'm JT with Michael Arkush today. His top 100, the greatest players, ranking of the greatest players of all time. Fascinating read. I'm guaranteeing you that you probably will not agree with every placement that Michael did, but he has a science behind it, and it's a lot of fun to read like that. Um, is there people that you thought could have been in the 90 to 100 ranking, 105, somewhere in there if you went that high, but didn't make it?
Well, yeah, I mean, you should have seen me, Jeff, at the watching the British Open last year, the final two rounds, because I had all these different scenarios depending on who's going to win, who would get into the list. Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Justin Thomas, Adam Scott, guys who are right on the verge of it. So it was very close, and I'm surprised in a way that Scotty didn't make it. Colin Montgomery is somebody I know people are going to find curious that he's not in there. 8 European Tour of Merit Order of Merit titles, tremendous player, but he never won a PGA Tour event, not alone a major, so he's not in it.
Yeah.
Tommy Bolt was a great player. Just because somebody didn't make the top 100 doesn't mean they weren't a great player.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. But, people are going to well, this is actually good around the dinner table or around the bar stool fodder in your book that you've got the facts there. And I think that's what's interesting about it too. You did the research and all that, you got the facts, but I know some people that absolutely Hogan was the best guy ever. He didn't win as
Yeah.
much, but he was the best golfer ever, like that. And then others are Bobby Jones or Nancy Lopez was better than Annika, like that. So it's golf's always open to interpretation, except the damn
Yeah, don't
rules.
forget Harry Varden. You know how great Harry Varden was in
Yeah.
the 19th century and early 20th century. Almost won the U.S. Open at the age of 50. There have been a lot of incredible players, no doubt about it. But you're right; it's all about people say Tiger, Jack, Jones, or Hogan. I don't think anybody really any thinks anyone else would be possible number one.
Yeah. Yeah. And Arnold would be bringing up like position 5 or 6 or something like
Right?
that.
And he's five. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So, Michael, I do this little thing called the lightning round. This is not about your book. This is just kind of irreverent questions that we get more information from Michael, so people know what you really think. Are you ready?
I'm go for it.
Okay. Um, if you could play a round of golf with one of your golfing heroes, who would it be?
Bobby Jones.
Okay. Um, we talked about this in the regular show. Do you think the professional golf is getting further removed from everyday golfers?
Yes, I'm amazed at how many people are just sort of soured on the game because of the controversy going on now.
Yeah. Yeah, they stepped in a puddle right there, that's for sure. Who was the biggest influence on you personally in your life or maybe in your golf game, but in your life in particular?
I have a history professor from who was a university professor in upstate New York who taught me during high school, who's now 84 years old, and he and I talk fairly regularly about events in the world. And he made me understand the value of history. He made me love history, and I will always be grateful to him.
Good. Good, good. If you could get a lesson, Michael, from one touring pro, who would it be?
Rory.
Yeah, I like that kid. It's kind of tough when we're our age and you get to call everybody kids. And even though they're 40 years old, you say you're a kid. If you were declared supreme ruler of golf for one day, what would you decree as supreme ruler?
I would get rid of the FedEx Cup. I would also end the season in August at an iconic golf course that people are connected to and can love watching.
I like that. I think we do our being media guys. I think the tour does a great disservice to professional golf when the last major is in July. like that. I used to love it when it was, of course, the Masters set everything off, and then you went on, and then you could always see the Open, into June, first part of July, and you did all that stuff, and it kind of strung it all out, and then
Golf doesn't
the
have a fitting climax. Every other sport crowns a champion at the end, and golf, I don't think I I don't think it's scintillating enough to have the money being what leads to a championship.
absolutely okay. Um, in your perspective, Michael, how have things changed since you started covering golf and the golf industry and the players, etc.?
Well, we talked about the access. It's harder as a to go and get the access you want with a player. Um, Used to be much easier, and I think that that's what fans so much love about golfers is that they seem accessible. How close we can get. You can be, sitting on a green like right next to the guy, or when he gets into the trouble in the woods. And I feel like there's now too much distance between the player and the fans, and the player and the media, and I think that that's a shame.
With the ladies tour, it's not as bad.
Right.
They're far more accessible. What's besides stuff you've written, do you have a favorite golf book?
Okay, I love final rounds. I'm
Yeah,
my friend Jim Dotson. I can't. I have to say it's a beautiful book. It talks about a love between a son and a father, and so much more. It's an incredible book. I'm totally biased because Jim's a very good friend of mine, but I could still make the case it's an incredible book.
it is an incredible book. Actually, when I read that book, I didn't know Jim. And as soon as I read it, I reached out. He came on the show. It was right after we started this show. And we became fast friends ever since. So, and
Yeah.
of course, then I went back and read Dew Sweepers and all kinds of
Right.
stuff there. Yeah. What's the worst tournament you ever covered?
Are you talking about just like a tournament that may be a really good tournament, just had one bad year?
Yeah, just something was wrong. Maybe it was just the weather. Maybe it was the
Yeah.
players.
I covered the tradition on the senior tour in the late 90s. I can't remember exactly what year it is, and I think it was only 2 rounds because it snowed and we were in Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah. That stands out.
Okay. So, what's the dumbest thing you've ever seen while covering a tournament?
Oh, dumbest thing I've ever seen. I saw somebody pick up a ball and throw it. I mean, how stupid can you be? I
Yeah.
mean, a fan, yeah,
Was
that's
it
got it right up there.
like Arnold's ball or somebody, notable?
No, it wasn't somebody, it wasn't a marquee player.
Okay.
And I was not right close. If I had been right near the person, I might have been able to say something. But somebody saw it, and everything was rectified. It wasn't a rules issue or anything like that. But it was like, come
Got
on,
it. Oh yeah. So if we put your skills to music, Michael, what would the music be?
Fleetwood Mac, don't stop thinking about tomorrow, right?
There you go. There you go. There you go. I like that. Um, Let me go over here to page 2. And if you could dine with a historical figure, who would it be? And what would be on the menu?
I'd like to sit down and have a steak with Winston Churchill.
God, wouldn't that be great?
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you like brandy?
I'm not a big brandy person, no. But if he offered me a glass of brandy, I don't think I'd say no.
No, no, no. I would be right there with you. Um, do you remember the first time you ever picked up a golf club?
I don't remember the moment, but I do remember where in my life, and it's a whole personal thing. My father had passed, I was a kid, and my aunt and uncle sort of encouraged me to play and took me to their country club in upstate New York. So I do remember how drawn I was to the game, but I can't remember the first day I did it.
Well, that's legal. That's legal. Michael, if you could erase one mistake from your past, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Are you talking about any mistake?
Any mistake.
Um, I don't know if I want to get specific about that, but we all have those moments of things we say that we wish we hadn't said. Probably something in that category.
Yeah, I understand.
How about that for dodging that question?
I was pretty good. I like that. Yeah, I'll give you points. I'll give you FedEx Cup points for that one.
All right, I'm third on the
Okay.
list. Yay.
Yeah. Um, if we're gonna go back to music for a second, do you remember the worst concert you ever attended?
I've been to some really bad ones. Um, I usually, like I said before about learning about history before you go somewhere, I usually knew my what I was going to see, so I wasn't disappointed. I remember the first concert I went to that blew me away was in high school when I saw Chicago, and I saw them again a couple of years ago, and it blew my mind that somebody was still, a couple of members of the band were
Still there?
still
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. What's the biggest change you think should be made, number one, in pro golf and number two, in amateur golf?
In pro golf. You're not talking about, are you talking about the tour then, basically?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't start in Hawaii in January. If you had me, this goes back to commissioner again, I would start the tournament at Pebble. I would start a tournament where I'm really excited to sit down in front of the TV and watch and have it maybe in first week of February. And that's what I would do in pro golf. In amateur golf, I would do everything possible to elevate the status of the amateur tournament, the US amateur again. I think it's that
Yeah.
important.
They like they have senior amateurs. I think that's the one they're having this year at Bandon. I don't know if you've ever been to Bandon. Bandon's
Yeah,
beautiful
sure. Yeah,
and all that. It's not accessible very well to the public.
right.
It was kind of like when they did the open up at Chambers Bay,
Hmm.
and people couldn't really get on the course, limited access, that type of thing. Um, I think if you want to do, my opinion, if you want to boost amateur golf, you should put it in places that are very accessible
Yes.
to the general public, plenty of parking, plenty of resources there, food tents, what restrooms, whatever. I know some of these are iconic courses, but I agree with you. If we want to raise the amateur level of interest and participation, I think you got to put it in a closer to a metro area.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I want to, the risk of sounding like an old fogey, I want us to connect with the history of the game and the courses as much as possible and resist the temptation to quote modernize, I don't know, coddle to a younger audience, a hipper audience.
Yeah,
Look at when I first started playing golf and watching golf, I mean, they were still talking about the tournaments from 30, 40 years ago and the places. I was drawn into that. I think a younger generation could be that way as well.
sure, absolutely. Just a couple more questions here. Um, are you considering yourself, Michael, a sweatshirt guy or more of a formal guy?
Sweatshirt. Oh my God.
That a boy, that a boy. What's the worst movie you ever saw?
Boy, oh boy. There was something with Dustin Hoffman. It wasn't Ishtar, although that was pretty bad.
That was pretty bad.
It was another I can't remember. I have walked out of I used to be a film critic, okay?
Okay.
I walked and I didn't walk out of films I had a cover, but I'm not somebody if a film is half hour, 40 minutes, it's terrible. I'm not waiting around, okay?
Yeah, I'm with you. I covered films when I was in college writing for a daily, and the only thing that was good about it was because I was a college student, they'd let me in for free, and I could get cheap hot dogs and stuff like that for dinner because when you never have any money most of the time when you're in college, so that was uh, that was the upside of covering that. But I
Yeah, I
got to
bet.
see some terrible movies.
Oh yeah.
Um, Couple more things here. What's one thing you miss about your 20s?
Probably the level of energy. Having the sort of just nonstop energy. I mean, that's the toughest thing about getting older is you have you mentally you want to do it, you're excited about doing it, you realize when you hit that wall that it's time to take a break. And I miss when I never had to take a break.
That is true. That's true. Um, Last question, Michael. This is one that usually makes people scratch their heads.
Uh-oh.
What would be your last meal if you were on death row?
Oh boy. Uh, Two choices. Either steak, as I mentioned earlier, with Churchill or without,
Yeah.
um, or probably all you can eat Chinese. That would probably make me go nicely.
Well, you don't have to worry about caloric intake at that point. You can eat as much as you want. So,
So
anyway,
true.
we've been talking with Michael Arkush. Excuse me. His new book, The Golf 100, a spirited ranking of golf's greatest players of all time. Real quick, Michael, before you leave, uh, tell the folks again when and where.
Okay, the book is actually going to be released officially on Tuesday, April 1st. Available bookstores and of course online on Amazon and on the Penguin Random House website. You can find it. I encourage people to read it, and I encourage people to reach out to me and continue the debate. The debate I plan, by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier, to sort of look and see what happens in 2025 with the possibility of revising the list in a paperback version. We'll see.
There you go, Michael Arkush. Michael, thank you for being with us today. Michael and I are going to get out of here. So, everybody, as usual, go out, have some fun, play some golf, and be kind. Thank you for listening. See you next week.